Again, guys, we are going live to Bernie Sanders now.
Democracy is not complicated. It means one person, one vote. It means that if you want to vote for me, that's great. You want to vote against me, that's called democracy. That's okay. But what democracy does not mean is billionaires buying elections. That's not democracy. And when you have the wealthiest people in this country, billionaires like the Koch brothers and others, spending hundreds of millions of dollars to elect candidates who represent the wealthy and the powerful, that, brothers and sisters, is not democracy. That is oligarchy, and together we're going to change that. And democracy is not about cowardly Republican governors trying to suppress the vote. So together, not only are we going to overturn this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision, but we're going to take on all of those Republican governors. We are going to move this country to having one of the highest rates of voter turnout, not one of the lowest. You know, just the other day, actually right here in Ohio, our campaign won a major victory. A Republican Secretary of State changed the rules so that 17-year-olds could not participate in the primary. We took them to court. We beat them. They're now eligible to vote. So our job is to take on this corrupt campaign finance system and revitalize American democracy. I want people all over this country to understand that they are powerful, that when they stand up and fight back, we can accomplish, as Senator Turner just told us, we can accomplish our dreams when we have the courage to fight for those dreams. This campaign is not only about taking on a corrupt campaign finance system, it is about taking on a rigged economy. Now, this is the wealthiest country in the history of the world, but most people do not know that because almost all of the new income and wealth being generated is going to the top 1%. Now, the media doesn't talk about it very often. You don't hear it discussed in Congress very often. But the reality is that today, if you can believe it, the top 1/10 of 1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. The 20 wealthiest people in this country now own more wealth than the bottom half of America, 150 million people. Now, when we talk about a rigged economy, understand that one family in America, the Walton family who owns Walmart, one family owns more wealth than the bottom 40% of the American people. That surely is not right, but it gets even worse because this is what the rigged economy is really about. The wealthiest family in America, owning Walmart, pays their workers wages that are so low that many of these employees are on food stamps, Medicaid, and subsidized housing. And do you know who pays for those food stamps, Medicaid, and subsidized housing? You do. So the middle class of this country is subsidizing the wealthiest family in this country. That ain't right. And I say to the Walton family, get off of welfare, pay your workers a living wage. It is a little bit crazy that working families have to subsidize the business of the wealthiest family in America, all right? But it goes further than that. In America today, in my state of Vermont, here in Ohio, all over America, we got folks who are working not one job, but 2 jobs, who are working 3 jobs. We got moms who are working, we got dads who are working, we got kids who are working, we got marriages that are stressed out because mom and dad don't have the time to spend, they're exhausted, they don't have the time to spend with each other. We got kids who are not getting the attention they deserve because mom and dad are working. Not widely known, but in America today, our people work the longest hours of any people in the industrialized world. There are jobs out there, you can see ads in the paper. There are jobs out there that provide 0 vacation time. It's true. Now, at the end of all of that, mom working, dad working, everybody working, 58% of all new income created today goes to the top 1%. It is time, brothers and sisters, that we created an economy that worked for all of us, not just the people on top. It is time that we raised the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. It is time that women not continue to earn 79 cents on the dollar. I was in Flint, Michigan a couple of weeks ago, and what I heard there from parents was literally beyond comprehension and something that unsettled me very much. That in America in the year 2016, children were being poisoned by a water system that had outrageous levels of lead in that system. But it's not only in Flint. Flint may be the worst case, but we have deteriorating water systems all over America, wastewater plants falling apart, our roads in bad shape in my state, many bridges in disrepair, levees, dams, airports, our rail system falling further and further behind other countries. If we invest, as I intend to do, $1 trillion in rebuilding our infrastructure, we can create 13 million good-paying jobs. Now, everybody here knows that we live in a highly competitive global economy. And everybody here knows that the future of our country economically and through a democratic sense is that we need to have the best educated workforce in the world. And everybody also knows that there are hundreds of thousands of bright, qualified young people who want to go to college but can't go to college because they lack the income. And I know something about this because my father dropped out of high school and my mother never went to college. I believe that when we look at public education in America today, we have to understand that the world and the economy have changed. 50 years ago, 30 years ago, a public education which gave us first grade to 12th grade free education was fine. It was adequate. But the economy has changed. People need more education today. And that is why I believe that when we talk about public education in the year 2016, we've got to be talking about making public colleges and universities tuition free. Now, some people think this is a radical idea. I don't. I think it is an absolutely commonsensical idea. It already exists. It already exists in Germany, Scandinavia, other countries around the world. And let me tell you something that few people know. The idea of virtually free tuition at public colleges and universities used to exist in America 50, 60 years ago. Now, people say, well, Bernie, that's a great idea, but it's expensive. Well, it is expensive. And it is also expensive to substantially lower student debt in this country because millions of Americans should not be punished because they chose to get a good education. So people say, well, Bernie, how are you going to provide free tuition at public colleges and universities, and how are you going to lower student debt? It's expensive. And this is my response. All of you remember that as a result of the greed, recklessness, and illegal behavior of Wall Street, this country was driven into the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression of the 1930s. Millions of people suffered. They lost their jobs, their homes, and their life savings. Well, I believe that now is the time to impose a tax on Wall Street speculation. If Congress could bail out Wall Street, now it is time for Wall Street to help the working families of this country. Let me, for a moment, talk about some of the differences that exist between Secretary Clinton and myself. And they are quite substantial. And one of them deals with an issue that the media hardly ever talks about. Congress doesn't talk about it so much, but you in Ohio and in the Midwest know about a lot, and that is the disastrous trade policies that have cost this country millions of decent-paying jobs. I was elected to Congress back in 1991. I took office. And it took me about 13 seconds to figure out that NAFTA was written by corporate America, that its goal was to shut down factories and plants in America, move abroad to find cheap labor, and bring those products back into America. Didn't take a PhD to figure that out. You are looking at a former congressman and a senator today who has not only voted against, but has led the opposition against NAFTA, CAFTA, permanent northern trade relations. And the truth is that in the great state of Ohio, you have lost more than 300,000 manufacturing jobs between 1994 and 2015. 31% of all manufacturing jobs in Ohio, but it's not just Ohio. In my state, all over this country, people saw their factories and decent paying jobs shut down, plants moved to Mexico, China, people hired at desperately low wages, and those products brought back to America. I will tell you a brief story. In the early 1990s, I went to the Maquiladora area in Mexico, and I'll never forget what I saw. What I saw there were all of these brand new state-of-the-art factories, American factories, some European factories. And I said, you know, I want to talk to the workers. I want to visit the homes of the workers who work in those factories. The only problem was I could not visit the homes of the workers who worked in those factories because they did not have homes. They lived in cardboard shacks, then making 25 cents an hour. I remember it like it was yesterday. Filthy water, they had one light bulb strung up, connected to some electric outlet someplace. Those were the people who were working in those factories. They were exploited people. Millions of people in Mexico had to leave their farms, come into the big cities, become unemployed. We are going together to end these disastrous trade agreements, which have cost this country millions of decent paying jobs. We are going to create trade agreements that work for workers, not just the CEOs of large corporations. Now that is what my record is. Secretary Clinton's record is very different. She supported virtually every one of those major disastrous trade agreements. When the choice came as to whether you're going to be on the side of workers or corporate America, she made her choice. I made a very different choice. Another difference between Secretary Clinton and myself is how we raise the funds we need to run our campaigns. Now, sadly but truthfully, it takes hundreds of millions of dollars to run for President of the United States. That's the reality. And we had to make a choice early on. Should we do what every other candidate does and develop a super PAC? Well, we agreed with you. And we said, we don't represent Wall Street, we don't represent corporate America, we don't represent the billionaire class. We're not going to beg them for money. We don't need a super PAC. Then something happened that was really extraordinary. We simply reached out to working families and we said, if you want a candidate who is going to take on the billionaire class and fight to transform our economy, we need your help. And you know what happened in the last 10 months? We have received over 5 million individual campaign contributions. That is more individual campaign contributions than any candidate in American history at this point in a campaign. Anybody here know what the average contribution is? $27. In other words, what we have proven is that you can run a winning national campaign without being dependent on the big money interest, and I'm very proud of that. Secretary Clinton has chosen another approach to fundraising. She has a number of super PACs. Last reporting period, her major super PAC reported that they had received $25 million from powerful special interest, $15 million from Wall Street alone. In addition, as many of you know, the Secretary has given speeches to major Wall Street financial institutions behind closed doors and earned $225,000 per speech. Now, I am very impressed by somebody who gets $225,000 per speech. I mean, that's a lot of money. And the way I figure it is that if you get $225,000 for a speech, it must be an incredibly brilliant speech. It must be a mind-blowing speech. It must be a Shakespearean speech. And I think if the speech is that great, she might want to release the transcript and let the American people hear it. You know, the American people are curious. Does she say the same thing behind closed doors about Wall Street as she says to the public? Well, releasing the transcript will allow us to know that. Now, what the Secretary has said also is she will, in fact, release the transcripts if other candidates do the same. So today, here in Akron, I am prepared to make a dramatic statement, a dramatic announcement. Are you all ready for this dramatic, earth-shattering announcement? I am prepared at this moment to release all of the transcripts of the speeches that I gave on Wall Street. All of them. And the reason that I can do it is there were no speeches. But if tomorrow Wall Street wants to invite me to give a speech, I doubt that they will, but if they do, this is what I would tell them. I would tell them that their illegal behavior and their greed has done enormous damage in this country. I would tell them that the 3 out of the 4 largest banks in America today are larger today than they were when we bailed them out because they were too big to fail. And I would tell them that if I'm elected president, we're going to break them up. look at America today, we all know that we have a broken criminal justice system. And one aspect of that broken system is that today somebody in Ohio or somebody in Vermont gets picked up with marijuana. That person has a police record for his or her whole life. A month ago or so, Goldman Sachs, one of the large financial institutions on Wall Street, reached a settlement with the U.S. government for $5 billion, $5 billion. And they reached that settlement because they were selling worthless packages of subprime mortgage loans. $5 billion settlement. Now, some kid in Ohio picked up with marijuana gets a criminal record, but not one person, not one executive on Wall Street, despite their illegal behavior, has received a prison term or a criminal record. Together, we are going to bring back justice to the criminal justice system. And justice means that even if you are wealthy and powerful, you got to obey the law. Now, this campaign is doing well and has a lot of momentum because we listen to the people and not just wealthy campaign contributors. And we are listening to workers who tell us they cannot make it on $8 or $9 an hour, which is why together we're going to raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour. This campaign is listening to senior citizens who tell me they can't make it on $12,000 a year. Republicans, if you can believe it, want to cut Social Security. I got bad news for them. We're going to expand Social Security, not cut it. This campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the African American community, and they are tired, and we all are tired of seeing unarmed African Americans being killed by police. Now, I am a former mayor. I work with the police department in my own city, and I've worked with police departments all over this country. Vast majority of police officers are honest and hardworking and have a very, very difficult job. But like any other public official, when a police officer breaks the law, that officer must be held accountable. We have got to demilitarize local police departments. We have got to make police departments look like the diversity of the communities they serve. In my state of Vermont and neighboring New Hampshire, and I know in many other parts of this country, including Ohio, we have a major crisis in terms of heroin addiction and heroin overdosing. This addiction to opiates is a very serious crisis, but what we have got to recognize is that substance abuse and addiction is a health issue, not a criminal issue. And this campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the Latino community. And they are tired of living in the shadows with 11 million undocumented people. They are tired of living in the shadows, living in fear. They want comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. And if Congress does not do its job, I will use the executive powers of the president to do everything I can. My Republican colleagues are running around the country talking about family values, and I want everybody here to understand that when they talk about family values, what they mean is that no woman in this room, in this state, in this country, should have the right to control her own body. I disagree. When they talk about family values, they are saying that our gay brothers and sisters should not have the right to be married. I disagree. You know, as Senator Turner mentioned a while back when she spoke, what this campaign is asking is, why not? Why is it that in our great country, we are the only major nation not to guarantee paid family and medical leave to our families? And I have been criticized for saying this, so let me say it again. I don't want any ambiguity here. I plead guilty. I believe that health care is a right of all people, not a privilege. I just want to know how it could be that the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Holland, Scandinavia, Canada, every major country on earth guarantees health care to all people, but somehow it is impossible for us to do that. I don't believe that for a second. What I believe is that if we stand together, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish. I believe that we can take on the drug companies who charge us the highest prices in the world for medicine. The drug companies that could double or triple or quadruple the price of medicine that you have used for years. The drug companies that have created a situation which is really unbelievable, where 1 in 5 Americans cannot afford to fill the prescriptions their doctors prescribe. That's crazy. And that is why I believe that together we're going to go forward and create a Medicare for all healthcare system. Everybody in this room who has studied American history understands that change, real change, never comes from the top on down. It always comes from the bottom on up. Workers went out on picket lines. Workers got beaten up, workers went to jail, but they said, we will form unions, we will have collective bargaining. Millions of African Americans and their white allies said, we will fight racism and segregation and bigotry. 100 years ago in America, people forget this, 100 years ago, women didn't even have the right to vote. Women could not go to schools that they wanted to go to. Women could not get the jobs they wanted to do. But women and their male allies said, in America, women will not be second-class citizens. They fought. Forget 100 years ago, 10 years ago, if we were in this room and somebody stood up and said, you know, I think gay marriage will be legal in 50 states by the year 2015, the person next to him would have said, what are you smoking? But what happened is, as a result of struggle and incredible bravery on the part of the gay community and their straight allies, real change took place in fighting homophobia. And here we are today. And today, millions of people are looking around them and they're saying, the status quo just is not working. We should not have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country when we have more income and wealth inequality. We should not be the only major country on earth not guaranteeing health care or paid family and medical leave. Young people should not be leaving college $50,000 or $100,000 in debt. We should be leading the world in combating climate change and transforming our energy system. We should not have more people in jail and still be dealing with institutional racism. We shouldn't be doing that. So what this campaign is about, in its essence, is thinking outside of the box, is envisaging the kind of country we can become if we have the courage to stand together and tell the billionaire class they cannot have it all. Now, one of the criticisms leveled at me is they say, well, Bernie's a nice guy, combs his hair really nicely, but he cannot win a general election. Let me tell you the truth. And the truth is that virtually every poll that has come out in the last few months has us defeating Donald Trump by NBC, Wall Street Journal just had a poll a few days ago. Sanders beats Trump by 18 points, which was a much larger margin than Clinton beating Trump. And this is true for many state polls. State poll in Michigan 2 weeks ago had us beating Trump by 19 points. New Hampshire the same, etc. So I think the evidence is pretty clear that we can beat Trump and we can beat him badly, but it's not just polls. It's not just polls. The reason we will defeat Donald Trump is the American people will not elect a president who insults Mexicans and the American people will not elect a president who insults Muslims, one of the largest. The American people will not elect a president who insults African Americans. Now many people unfortunately have forgotten this, but I want to remind you of it. Several years ago, before he was a candidate, Donald Trump was a leader in the so-called birther movement. And I want you to understand that that movement was no joke. It was a very coordinated effort to delegitimize the presidency of Barack Obama. It wasn't an effort to say we disagree with Obama, we don't like Obama. That's not what it was. What it was saying that Barack Obama should not be president, was not legally qualified to be president. And it was based on an outrageous lie. Now, I have always found it funny that President Obama's father was born in Kenya. He is the son of an immigrant. My father was born in Poland. I am the son of an immigrant. But don't you think it's strange that nobody asked me for my birth certificate? You think it might have something to do with the color of my skin as opposed to the president's? I think so. Now, the American people will defeat Donald Trump because they understand that bringing our people together, black and white and Latino and Asian American and Native American, gay and straight, men and women, bringing our people together always trumps dividing us up. The American people understand that community, the need to help each other, always trumps selfishness. And the American people understand that based on the teachings of every religion, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, that love always trumps hatred. Tomorrow is a very important election here in Ohio. If there is a large voter turnout, we will win. If there's a large voter turnout, Ohio We dealt with that a few months ago. All right. Tomorrow, Ohio has the capability of helping to lead this country into a political revolution. Let's do it. Thank you.